This is the Effing One Podcast, Australia's only Formula One podcast with Adam and Luke.
G'day and welcome to the Effing One Podcast, home of the Nerang Grand Prix, the Turd Championship, a podcast that just keeps you uninformed and leaves you wanting more. So much more, we just didn't do the last podcast, and it's not like we've had 4 weeks to do it. But here I am doing a solo for you to quench your thirst for another mediocre shit show of the little Aussie Battlers Grand Prix. Webster's defines Aussie Battler as, did you mean Aussie Battle? But we all know what it means. It's a bit of Nerang, it's a bit shit, and it smells a little on the nose, but it's the Effing One Podcast. Listening to us puts you in the 1% of creators on OnlyFans, an elite group of Formula One fans who don't care that we make it all up, who dress up for the next Grand Prix attire, and Adam occasionally blackfaces for an audio-only format. Why? Because we're different. We aren't the stuffy shirts of the paddock. We are the loose cocks in a frock. We are the Effing One Podcast. Let's sit down, put your head back, relax, and as Adam would say, shut the hell up! So grab the tissues and get ready for another tear-jerking podcast just for you and your ears. And welcome to the F1 Podcast. My apologies again for the hiatus. We didn't get on to the Hungarian post-Grand Prix. We didn't do a preview for Spa, and there's no surprises. No F1 Podcast equals no race. So here I am, pumping one out on my own, as I do most nights of the week. I've got 2 hands firmly around this microphone, and I am ready to just sprinkle you all with a bit of Effing One Podcast magic on my own. And let's look back to the Hungarian Grand Prix many, many moons ago, where Esteban Ocon took the prize of a wet start and a chaotic crash thanks to Bottas, following team orders, finally was close enough to Max Verstappen to take him and Perez out. Unfortunately, he didn't do a good enough job taking out Max, and Max managed to finish the Grand Prix. Then it was all red flag. Lance Stroll took a couple of blokes out. And then what happened? We had a restart. Lewis Hamilton was on the front row. There was no one else there. Everyone else was in pit lane changing their tyres from intermediates to the slick tyres. And Lewis went around on his own when the lights went out. George Russell tried to take a sneaky little inside run and made up a whole bunch of spots coming out in second, but it was quickly told by the FIA to get back where you should be. And he went back behind Alonso. But it was a good Grand Prix. Heaps of battles, heaps of things going on there. My conspiracy, which I've come from that weekend, is Lance Stroll managed to take out Charles Leclerc, which then took out poor Daniel Ricciardo. Bottas did a very good job, probably one of the highlights of the year. He managed to take out Lando Norris. Sergio Perez heavily damaged Max Verstappen and took himself out of the race. So I think we all know where the Green Award could be going towards those gentlemen who caused that accident and saved a lot of carbon emissions being burst into the air. The race was littered with overtaking, bumping of wheels, of course, complaining by Hamilton. Would you expect anything less? And the end result was Ocon, Vettel, and Hamilton for your top 3. They were on the podium, but Vettel couldn't produce enough of a sample. It's something his wife Helga has complained about for many years. We'll talk to him very shortly and see what he has to say about not providing 1 litre of a fuel sample. He said he would make it up, but unfortunately they wouldn't accept what his sample was. And so Sainz gets another podium. 50% of Sainz's podiums have been not celebrated on the podium. So he's got a couple of third places that was celebrated after someone got disqualified, which makes me think Ferrari is in the ears of the stewards. I think they siphoned out a bit of Vettel's fuel, so they couldn't have enough. You need at least 1 litre of fuel to give a fuel sample. That's why the 2 Williams stopped on track straight after they went over the checkered flag. A great race for Williams. They get some points. They're on the board. Latifi ahead of George Russell. And then we had the thing that I'm confused about. If anyone knows, please let me know. Slide into the DMs on Instagram. Hit me up on Twitter, F1 Podcast, and let me know, why did Ocon not go into pit lane? Why did he go down the main straight after he'd done his lap? He then went down pit lane again. Went down the main straight, not going into pit lane where everyone else was going. He just decided, fuck this, I'm going to go around. And the Usain Bolt stance he's got going there really doesn't work for a man of his stature. I think he needs to somehow, think of like more of a praying mantis or something that's like a stick figure stance that he can do, because that just really doesn't work for his svelte, tiny boy figure that he's got there. We can go into what happened with the Hungarian Grand Prix in regards to awards. The fast lap went to Pierre Gasly, the fastest pit stop. Red Bull Racing with 1.88 second pit stop. That's super fast. 4 wheels off, 4 wheels on. Car drops and gone in 1.88 seconds. Driver of the day, no surprise, was Fernando Alonso for keeping Mr. Lewis Hamilton, who did complain incessantly about how difficult it was to overtake, and then went ahead and overtook the majority of the field. Or what was left of the field. Confusing. But once again, he can find anything to complain about, that man. I think he's a 7-time world champion complainer, and I think he'd be going for another 8th title, complainer of the year. The awards that were given by us, the F1 Podcast Award, goes to Fernando Alonso just for holding Lewis up for that long and being the thorn in his side, and especially in Hungary. He's done that before at that track, back when they were teammates, deliberately holding him up in the qualifying pit stop that they did. He just stayed there. He was told to go. He stayed there until it was too late that Lewis wouldn't get his final qualifying lap in. Cunning little ploy there by Fernando Alonso, which he has grown, he has matured, and he's not that petulant little man that he was back then. But the F1 Podcast Award for making Formula One great again goes to the man himself, Fernando Alonso. Bravo, Fernando. The Green Award, no surprises, goes to Lance Stroll and Valtteri Bottas. They're going to have to split that leaf down. The Green Award. It's for lowering the carbon footprint. Not only did they lower the carbon footprint of themselves, they lowered the carbon footprint for Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris, Checo Perez. Put out a red flag as well, which slowed everyone down, stops the burning of fuel. And congratulations for really thinking of the environment in Hungary. A Pastor Maldonado Award. Now, you could give it to Bottas, the bowling ball, and Stroll gutter ball, for taking a few guys out. But it's pretty dangerous. But I'm going to give it to Max Verstappen. Why? Because I want to. And he just went side by side with Mick Jr. Schumacher and just bumped him out of the way like he wasn't there. There's no respect there from Max. He just went straight into the side of him to make sure he had that move going into turn 4. The Yuji Ide Award for wasting everyone's time. Once again, you could give it to Bottas and Stroll, but not this time. They'll get it plenty more times, don't you worry about that. Sergio Perez gets the Yuji Ide Award because there's no real point for him to turn up that weekend. He rocked up, he got taken out, and he went home. Really, didn't need to be there, wasting a lot of time. The Lick It and Send It Award. Now, there was a lot of great overtaking manoeuvres, especially around the outside of turn 3, going into turn 4. I think someone made a move into turn 5. Ballsy move. Very quick corner there. But I'm going to give it to George Russell, boy George Russell, for what he did in the pit lane. And he just went, you know what, I can't get back into this line of cars that is at the exit of pit lane when they did the second start. And he just decided, no, I'm going to go alongside, jump in front of Pierre Gasly, and I'm P2. So for your great move, a very forward-thinking and ideas man, that George Russell. But then he got shunned and told to go back and to be in where he should be, which was behind Fernando Alonso. The Speckled Jim Award goes to Fernando Alonso. 2 votes goes to Esteban Ocon, and 1 vote to Lewis the Douche Canoe Hamilton. The Speckled Jim Award is Speckled Jim is our mascot, our late mascot. Not that he's tardy, or he was a little bit tardy when he fought, more tardy than tardy. He had that droopy eye. He had ADHD. He also had a what was it? It was a goiter. I didn't know chickens get goiter, but he was a fighting rooster that we had, and he's our mascot and he's our spirit animal really for this podcast. He had 127 bouts, 126 losses, 1 win, a fantastic win, very triumphant win. He was fighting an older cock, and that cock died in the ring of natural causes. So that win chalked straight up to Speckled Jim, and funnily enough, that's the only bout that producer Pete didn't put money on Speckled Jim, which he had very long odds to win that fight, but Pete, for the only time in his training of Speckled Jim, did he decide to go against him, go against his cock, and he decided to go on an older cock, which is typical for Pete. He does love the older cock. And unfortunately, that's the one that Speckled Jim won. And so it's like a best and fairest. In Australia, we have the AFL, we have the Brownlow Medal, the Dally M for those rugby league fans. It's the best and fairest. And for those 3 gentlemen, they get votes towards the Speckled Jim medal. And if they play their cards right and drive well and fair, they can get the medal around their neck like Daniel Ricciardo got last year. The Caviar Cup, Latifi finished ahead of George Russell, so the Caviar Cup is for the billionaire boys. They get you would think it's a fancy type of fish eggs for the caviar, but we've got toadfish here in Australia. We're just going to use those eggs in the Caviar Cup. We can't afford, salmon or any other of those fancy eggs at tuna. I don't know what's in caviar. I really don't. But they're going to get toad eggs, toadfish, not actual toads. That would be funny as well. But it's going to Latifi. He's the only one who finished ahead of his teammate of part of the billionaire boys, Mazepin, Stroll, and Latifi. Latifi finished ahead of George Russell, which is very rare for Latifi. But when points were on show, he was in front. And great job by Latifi at the Hungarian Grand Prix. He was sitting in second there for a while. But unfortunately, as the pit stops played out and everyone could show their true pace, he got shuffled back a bit. And that is pretty much the wrap of the Hungarian Grand Prix. For the tips, I can't forget that. I'm going to give the tips for both of the weekends. So the tips, Marcus, you got 12, I got 14. Cliff, geez, you pulled out. He said that George Russell would get his first point as part of the outsider chance of votes, and he got the extra 5 points for tipping that one. So I'm going to give that to him. 20 points for Cliff. Pat Foley, 12. Jimmy, he got 11. Tough week for Jimmy. Understandable. Not an easy weekend, and neither was the following weekend, which I'll go through the tips now since I'm waffling on about it. For the Spa, Francorchamps Belgian Grand Prix, the wet weekend. Myself, Marcus, 13. Cliff, 14. Jimmy again on 11. Pat Foley, 16. But yeah, cracking. George scores his first point. Well done, Cliff. Tipped that very, very well. Now, let's look at the jump ahead. We're going to look at Spa. Now, we didn't do a pre-podcast, so you missed out on the pre-podcast, but I'll give you a very brief introduction to what we had lined up for the Spa-Francorchamps Belgian Grand Prix, and this is it. This is the preview of the Belgian Grand Prix for the F1 podcast that we missed out on. Here it is. it might rain on the weekend. And the review of the Belgian Grand Prix, yep, it rained. It rained on the weekend. And that's pretty much spot on what happened. It was wet all weekend. There was short periods of dry, and the Ardennes Forest certainly kept the track nice and moist for Spa's race. It wasn't really a race. It was 2 laps behind a safety car, and by God, that was a long night. I tried to stay up as long as I could. I think I'd got to about 2:30, thinking, 2 a.m. It's not 2 p.m. where I am. Stayed up, watched it. I think the race was supposed to start at 11, and the telecast just kept going on and on and on, and we watched rain drop, and we watched Mick Schumacher drive Michael's 1990, 91? I don't know. The year he made his debut for the Jordan team in the 7-Up Jordan car, which I think it was 91. Yes, 91 for that one. 20 years, 30 years. Fuck, jeez, it's been that long already. 30 years. Whoa. So it was his anniversary for his debut, and he got to drive around Silverstone in the 7-Up Jordan. I think it's 191B car it is. Beautiful. Now, coming up, we've got Robert Kubica, our hand in the paddock now. We've got Robert, he's the official Formula One COVID tester. He's got his hand that he was injured with the rally accident. His gammy hand now actually does the COVID testing for Formula One. He traditionally, with most COVID testing, they're using the nasal swab, back of the throat, all that kind of caper. Not our man Robert Kubica. He goes the other end. He feels that he can get a better taste test from the anus of every driver, steward, team boss, you name it. If you're in F1, Robert's had his hand in you. And we're going to catch up with him right now. I'm going to play the intro, and then when we come back, we will have Robert Kubica.
Hand in the paddock, hand in the paddock, it's hand in the paddock with Robert Kubica. Robert Kubica. Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, fellas. What's going on? It's me, Robert Kubica. G'day, Robert. It's great to see you. Now, I just want to say that here's biggest condolences to you on what happened at Le Mans 24 Hour. Oh, yes, look, I was very sad. You know, I drive all day and all night with my teammates, and unfortunately, on the last lap, our car stopped. It had a throttle sensor issue. So when you put your foot down, there's a sensor, a throttle. It didn't work. Very sad. 24 hours of racing. And unfortunately, we were in the lead and lost. I know, Robert, it's a terrible happening. I'll explain to the listeners, Le Mans 24 Hours is a 24-hour race, and when the clock finishes at 24 hours, there's one lap after that 24 hours runs out. So it's 24 hours plus one lap, and the 24 hours had expired, and you guys were on your final lap of the circuit of Le Mans, and your car stopped. It happened to the number 7 Toyota a couple of years ago, and now that unfortunate has struck you. Yes, look, it's very unfortunate. But the positive side is this weekend I get to test. I test the COVID, I put my finger in the tight anus of the driver, I figure around, and then I pull it out, and I give it a little sniff, give it a little lick, and you are free of COVID. You don't have COVID, you can enter the paddock and enter the Formula One. You're a very in-depth tester. Have you had any complaints from any of the drivers? Well, look, there's only one driver who didn't like the way I tested. It was Sebastian. He said I didn't go deep enough. I went up to my elbow. My elbow's normal. My gammy hand got stuck. He has a very tight anus. But I managed to pull it out. And he's free of COVID. So thankfully Sebastian could drive this weekend. Okay, look, I need to go. I need to go test some more drivers. Bye-bye. Robert Kubica here on the F1 podcast. Our hand, literal hand in the paddock. And I'm going to go back to Spa. Now, we all saw what happened. If you didn't see, check it out. The W Series was racing that same weekend, and we all know where I'm going here. 6 women at the top of Raidillon, the Eau Rouge Raidillon corner that goes up. 6 drivers all crashed at the exact same point. It had just started to rain. The girls were on their second lap. They'd done 2 warm-up laps, so they were ready. They were ready for their push lap. And as rain just started to sprinkle down, they were all on slick tires. They went up that hill. They both at the midpoint of the corner, the apex, some would call it. It was just not enough grip. It was just a little bit too greasy. And they all went into the wall. There were 6 drivers that went into the wall. Now, I'm not saying it's because they're female. I know that's what you think I'm inferring. The proof is in the pudding when you see Lando Norris do the exact same thing going up the same corner. And he managed to take a few more corners off his car, I'll tell you that right now. But if I was in position 5 or 6 in that W Series qualifying and I look up that hill and I see 4 cars ahead of me that have already crashed, I don't know about you, but I'd be lifting. Because I don't want to go... hitting a barrier is fine. But going into another car at that kind of speed, I try to avoid it. But I can understand the way they think. It's go time. This is the time to do it. Just as Lando did. And it was funny. I was actually talking to producer Pete as we're watching qualifying. And I said to myself, well, we'll soon find out who's better driving in the rain, women or men. And then Lando drove straight into that wall. And as the original live shot, as he ducked behind the trees, because there was a helicopter shot, and I turned to producer Pete, and I said, wouldn't it be funny if you didn't see him come out of that? And he didn't. Shards of his car littered the track as he came across, spinning round and round. Oh, it's Lando. He's in the wall. But yeah, it just proves that both the sexes are shit drivers. So Lando representing the male population, the women representing themselves, we all make the same mistakes. So we're all shit. And that's how even motor racing has become. So let's get Jamie Chadwick into a Formula One car. Let's get her into the top tier. She's definitely good enough. She's a head and shoulders above anyone else. And get her into GP2. Get her into Formula One. This woman is going places. She's a phenomenal driver, and I'm glad all the girls and Lando were all came out unscathed. A few bruises. Lando was sort of holding his arm when he got out of the car, and some of the girls had some hospital scans. All checked out. They're all good. So very happy that everyone was safe and sound. It didn't look too nice when you watched it on TV. And now we're going to have a quick chat to what I'm going to call the Man of the Year. I'm calling it here on the podcast right now. Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion, is joining us very shortly, and I want to sort of go over some things that this man has accomplished. Not only his 4 world titles, not only is he's a statesman of Formula One, and he's leading his team, doing a great job. But Sebastian Vettel has an encyclopedic knowledge of world champions from 1950 all the way up to today. And he did that. If you go onto YouTube, check out Sebastian Vettel World Champions knowledge, and he will smash out from now all the way back, not missing a single world champion. It's freakish. And I really appreciate even Sean Tim Tam Kelly, the stat man of Formula One. If you check Virtual Statman out on Twitter, it was impressive. It was impressive not to say what he did, every world champion. And he also, Hungary has had they're a bit anti-gay in Hungary. Not here in the podcast. Adam's all for sucking a bit of cock. The T-shirt he wore a gay pride T-shirt during the national anthem. Now they have their We Racers 1, where drivers will take a knee or stand there. They'll wear T-shirts, whatever they want to do, if it's Black Lives Matter, if it's gay pride, or if it's anything like that. They get their chance to sort of show their stance and be part of a positive movement in showing the world that we are inclusive and we want everyone to enjoy Formula 1 but also participate and get in there. Sebastian Vettel's wearing gay pride, and normally after the moment of the wee races won, before they do the national anthem, they're supposed to take that off, go back into their overalls or to their undergarments that have all their sponsors on it. But Sebastian Vettel kept it on, and I've no doubt it was deliberate, making a stand because Hungary is very anti-gay. But it was an opportunity to have, and Sebastian did get reprimanded afterwards. Then, funnily enough, got suspended from the race. Conspiracy? Also, when Lando had his crash, Sebastian was on the blower, on the radio saying, listen, this should be red flag, before Lando had his crash. Then after Lando had his crash, he drove up beside him to make sure that he was okay. And that's the kind of man Sebastian Vettel is. When he's not annoying Mark Webber back in 2010 and fighting for the world championship between his teammate, pulling some dirty tricks in Turkey and then trying to say that Mark was crazy. He's aged, he's matured, he's a fine gentleman, a funny man. And also, what he did in Silverstone, which should have got him the Green Award, and I'm giving a posthumous Green Award to Sebastian Vettel for what he did at Silverstone. After the race, he was found in the stands, cleaning up after you dirty fuckers in the United Kingdom. You spectators just leaving your bottles and chip packets and everything around. Sebastian Vettel was up there cleaning up and making sure that he not only talks the talk, but he walks the walk when it comes to talking about the environment and the issues that we have. And I think more drivers need to be doing this kind of initiative to clean up. Or if the spectators just keep it tidy and put their shit in the bin, then you wouldn't have to do this. So yeah, Sebastian Vettel for me, man of the year, and we're about to talk to him right now. Hi guys, it's me, Sebastian Vettel, four-time world champion. How you doing? Sebastian, great to see you. Thanks for coming along. I just want to say, you are an absolute fucking legend. Did you just work that out? I've been fucking amazing for so many years, look. I know, Sebastian, I'm a bit slow. That's just, I think I was dropped in my head as a child. But so please give me a little bit of grace. All the things you've done just recently, what is your plans this weekend? I can't tell you, look. It's super secret what I'm going to do at the Zandvoort Grand Prix. I'm just, I'm fabulous. I've got an encyclopedic knowledge of everything. I wear super funky t-shirts, gay pride. I don't understand why I got disqualified for not having enough sample. I had so much sample of that gay pride t-shirt. I could have just wrung it out and you would have had heaps of sample that I had from that weekend. Really? Yeah, sometimes I just, just wander through the paddock and go around the bush and, do what I do. And I provide for the paddock. I'm just a man's man. Is what you say? Yeah, that's kind of what you say. But, it's unfortunate you missed out on your P2 trophy. Oh, no, I'm not giving that fucking trophy back. I'm keeping that motherfucker. And you straight up checked out, see Lando. I was like, of course I'm going to check out. He's got such beautiful buns and such a dreamy eyes. Why wouldn't I stop for him? Hi, Lando, you okay? Do you need me to come over there and rub anything for me? And then Lando just gave me a thumbs up, a thummy thumb, and he's like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, oh, could you put that thumbs up? And he's like, no. And then he just shoot me away. I'm fine. Thank you. So yeah. Look, what is this podcast called again? It's called the Effing One. I don't give a fucking shit. Look, I need to go. I have to race a car in Zandvoort. Bye-bye. Say hi to Adam. I miss him. I want to have his children. Bye. Ha! Sebastian Vettel, everyone. 4-time world champion. on our podcast. We're punching well above our weights. Now, normally, if Adam was here, there'd be some kind of mid-sell, pre-sell, post-sell. There'd be a sell of what we've had so far. We've managed to go over Hungary, which we didn't in the previous podcast. There was one. Then we went over Spa very, very quickly. Probably last about as long as the 2 laps behind the safety car. And now we jump head first, pants down, into Zandvoort, the Grand Prix of Holland. Now, it's a big weekend. You could say it's Max's second home race, even though he races under a Dutch flag. He was born in Belgium. We know that. Pete knows that as one of Pete's biggest rants. Everyone wearing orange when he's actually a bloody Belgian. And if you remember from Austin Powers' Gold member, Michael Caine, who plays Austin Powers' Faja, he said, there's 2 things I don't like in this world: intolerance of other people's culture and a Dutch. And that's exactly what we're like on this podcast. We're about to jump into Zandvoort, but before we do, as I always do, before we get into that, we're going to go over the tips and the awards. There is awards for a 2-lap under safety car Grand Prix race. We're looking at Spa. The tips, we've already gone over the tips. We'll go into the fastest lap. There was no fastest pit stop. There was no driver of the day. But there was a fastest lap, and that went to Nikita Mazepin. You heard right. Nikita Mazepin did the fastest lap under safety car. Congratulations, Nikita. Unfortunately, you weren't in the top 10, so you didn't get a point, which I actually said Mazepin, that was part of my crazy prediction that Mazepin would get a point, thinking there'd be some kind of shit show carnage, and we'd have Bottas and Stroll further back in the grid manage to take out far more people when they do crash into turn 1. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. It was just under safety car. Still, Perez managed to crash, so he did a fantastic job. But the F1 Podcast Award for making Formula 1 great again, I'm going to give it to Fernando Alonso again. And the reason being, well, it's not for him, actually. It's for his helmet cam. Now, if you saw the helmet cam, check it out on YouTube. They've put up a lap, and it was just a phenomenal insight into what the driver actually sees. You can see his delta, you can see his gear changes, his torque map changes. You can see all the things that he makes these changes while he drives the lap of Spa. And it was just really incredible to see how much they don't see. I'm sure if you play a PlayStation, you've changed different driver views to get a feel of it, but it's a pretty unique view, and I'm glad that Formula One was able to broadcast it live as technology improves, and it was a great insight into what a driver sees. And thank you for Alpine in showing us that kind of angle and that kind of openness of their steering wheel, which I know with teams like AlphaTauri, who've had the glasses cam on the previous year, I think it was, the year before, that they blurred out the dash so you wouldn't see what setting they were in for whatever fucking reason. The Green Award, basically for lowering your carbon footprint and thinking about the environment, not burning fossil fuels. And it was the Ardennes Forest. That's who we're giving the award to. So the forest that surrounds the Belgian Grand Prix track of Spa-Francorchamps. We're giving it to the forest for giving us a deluge of rain, which stopped a lot of proceedings, which lowered how much emissions the cars put out, and kept itself a little bit cleaner on the weekend. The Pastor Maldonado Award for dangerous driving goes to Sergio Perez for his fantastic lap going to the grid, and he managed to crash and take off a front corner of his car, which thankfully Red Bull fixed for no fucking reason. The UGE Day Award goes to Lance Daddy Boy Stroll. I don't know how he finished behind Perez in the classifications. It bemuses me how, when Perez had to start from pit lane dead last. So if anyone knows how that happened or how Stroll managed to get behind Perez, let me know. Hit me up on the socials on Instagram or on Twitter and let me know what happened there, because I don't know. The Likert and Sendet Award, now I'm giving it, it's normally for an overtaking maneuver. but we're giving it to a staunch defence. And that staunch defence was giving it to Bernd Mailander. He's the driver of the Formula One safety car. And what he managed to do is keep Max behind him. Max tried to take a bit of a lunge down to the Brussels corner. It's kind of like a long hairpinny corner. And Max nearly ran into the back of the safety car, which would have been fucking hilarious. But great job by Bernd Mailander, keeping Max behind him and taking out the race win. Speckled Jim votes goes this way. Russell gets 3 for his phenomenal qualifying lap. He was sitting on pole. Max looked pretty strong, and I was like, no. Hamilton didn't beat him in a Mercedes. The Williams was on the front row. Congratulations, George Russell. You get 3 votes toward the Speckled Jim medal. Mazepin for getting the fastest lap. You get 2 votes. And Sebastian Vettel for just checking in on Lando and being a downright fucking legend. Well done, Seb. And the Caviar Cup, Latifi was well behind. His teammate Stroll was shit. He was well behind Sebastian Vettel. But Mazepin, he was also behind Mick, but he did get the fastest lap of the race, so we're going to give him a point in the Caviar Cup. He doesn't have much, so we're going to give him 1 for that one. Now we go into the Dutch Grand Prix Zandvoort. Ooh, what a track this is. Weather forecast. Let's have a look. It's going to be 2% chance of rain Saturday, Sunday, so probably not going to happen. Tops of 18, 19, and 21 for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then we're looking at race times. Let's look at race times. What time is it going to be in your neck of the woods? The Dutch Grand Prix for Auckland in New Zealand. Our friendly listeners over there, the Dutch Grand Prix is happening at 1 a.m. For Queensland, our time, the east coast of Australia, the Dutch Grand Prix is at 9 o'clock for Perth in Western Australia. If you're in Helsinki in Finland, or if you're on that timeline, you'll be at 4 p.m. on the Sunday afternoon. If you're in Stockholm, you'll be watching the Grand Prix at 3 p.m. Beautiful time to watch it. And if you're in London, you'll be watching the Dutch Grand Prix at 2 p.m. The west coast of the United States of America, the Dutch Grand Prix will be on at 6 a.m. And for the East Coast, 3 hours later at 9, you'll be watching that race for you guys. What else is coming up? I'll go through a little brief bit about the track, what it does, what it looks like. It basically, what could I say it looks like? Looks like a mangled, like a wine bottle opener, the corkscrew, and it's just someone's just bent it and gone, fuck, it won't work now. That's what the Zandvoort track looks like. It's a 4.259 kilometer track. There'll be 72 laps. I believe that's the same amount of laps as Monaco, but the track length is much longer. The race distance is also longer with a 306.648 kilometer lap distance. There is no lap record in the current format from the Dutch Grand Prix. First Grand Prix was 1952. There is 2 DRS zones, I believe. There is one down the main straight coming off the long right-hander, which I believe is a banked corner, which should be fun, similar to the last corner in Mexico, but a little bit more banked, I believe. 2 DRS zones, one between turn 10 and 11. Some good overtaking options down into turn 1, turn 11 and 12, down into 3, and I'm sure they'll be going side by side through maybe 13, 14. It looks like it's going to be a fun track to see some racing, and I really hope it lives up to this expectation, this high expectation I'm giving it already. The C1, C2, C3 tyres are the 3 hardest tyres of the Pirelli 5 compounds, and they're all going to Zandvoort, the 3 hardest. So the soft, medium, and hard. The hard is the C1, C2 medium tyre, and the C3 soft tyre for this weekend's Dutch Grand Prix. What else can we talk about? We're going to have a quick chat with Toto Wolff. Now, Toto's keeping silent on what's happening with his drivers. I think we all pretty much know, in the mainstream media, he's keeping silent. When he was talking to us about 6 weeks ago, he was I don't know if he was drunk or high or whatever, but he was loose on his words, and he told us that we know that George Russell is going to be driving. It's going to be Kimi's last lap this year, so he's going back to his original nickname that happened with the podcast 4 years ago when we said that it would be his last lap at Ferrari, and we thought it would be his last lap in his career, but it went on a couple more years, and this is his last tour around these tracks and racing in Formula One for Kimi Räikkönen. Who knows what's going to happen for him next? Probably become a full-time professional alcoholic. He's got it in him. He could do it, and we know he could. He certainly can do that. We'll talk to Kimi in the next podcast when Kimi he's all completely fully booked. I tried to get 5 seconds of his time, and he told me to fuck off. So I said, fine, I'll talk to you next time. But the other thing is, I think Bottas will go to Alpha, replace Finn for Finn. George goes to Mercedes. What I would like to see is the spare seat at Williams. Now, I'm not sure how long Williams have a Mercedes engine in the back of their car for, because Renault or Alpine are looking to get a Renault engine in another team. And with Honda linked with AlphaTauri and Red Bull Racing, Haas and Alfa Romeo linked with the Ferrari engine. Mercedes have a few engines that they've put out, and they probably want to pull one back. And I think, in the way I haven't heard this, I'm just thinking out loud. I think Williams will take the Renault engine, and Williams and Renault have had a good partnership in the past, and it's come good. So I think that Williams will take on a Renault engine. So now Alpine, Renault will have two cars with engines, which I think is it's what needs to happen to continue their development, and also to have more data and database from a different car to see how their engine holds up. And because there's also Renault Driver Academy drivers like Guan Yu Zhou and Oscar Piastri, the Australian, they're looking for a step into Formula One. And without the seats available, because Ocon and Alonso have taken long-term contracts. I think they've got 3 years, both of them now. So they won't be getting out of the cars anytime soon. But if Piastri or Guan Yu Zhou win the Formula 2 title, they need to go somewhere. They can't stay in Formula 2. They'll need to step up or go to another racing series. Alpine need to give them that step up, and that step up could be at Williams. And therefore, you can see Guan Yu Zhou, which would have big Chinese backing. It'd be massive for China. Or if Oscar Piastri, the Australian, can win his championship in his first click in F2, I think that he could do that, and he could definitely step up towards that grade, or it could be the year after. Who knows? But I do believe, in my head, it makes sense. Williams, Renault, it's worked in the past. It can work again. But now, before we head off, we're going to have a quick chat with Toto Wolff about this weekend's Dutch Grand Prix. Hello, Luke. Why am I always last? I don't understand. You could get this over and done with. I've been on hold for 45 fucking minutes. Yeah, Toto, we understand that, but you're just a team boss. Like, we have Robert Kubica, former driver, Grand Prix winner. We have four-time world champion Sebastian Vettel. Like, you're a great man, and I Luke, appreciate let's cut the your crap. time. Let's get on to what you want to ask. George Russell, is he driving for you? You know, I've said this to you guys before. He's driving our fucking car. Let's not beat about the bush. I'm sick of all these people and all these questions. Finally, I can vent and I can say to you guys, because you've got, 7 listeners? Well, we know George is going to race at Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula 1 team next year alongside Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas. I've got shares in him. I'm planning to sell them big. I could sell them to Christian Horner. I don't care. He has done a fantastic job that he did in Hungary by taking out Sergio and crashing into Max and making his car a piece of shit. Very important, he got another 0 on his contract. We're very happy with his boldness of taking the championship leader out. So that was a plan. Listen, look, you know I can speak openly and freely on this podcast, so I can say whatever the fuck I want. Yes, I told Valtteri to take him out, and then if he did a good job, Max still finished the race, wasn't taken out, but he was nowhere near Lewis. Lewis scored far more points, and it was fantastic for the championship, and hopefully Bottas can be that close again and take him out again. It gave him 5 grid penalty spot. That's fine. They'll probably have to take engines for Sergio, so he won't be an issue later on in the year. It's all the mind games. We're playing a smart thing. This is ruthless. We are taking no prisoners. You are really taking no prisoners, Toto. Just what I said, Luke. Taking no prisoners. We've got this championship. We will not let it go. Not for Max. Not for Christian. Not for any of those girly men at Red Bull who are just all a bunch of fucking whingers. I'm going. Goodbye. Toto Wolff, everyone. Fantastic. Thanks for coming by, Toto Wolff. One thing I want to go by, as I said in the intro, this is the home of the Turd Championship, and I'll go over the Turd Championship points right now. There has been an inclusion after I think it was like 15 or so races outside. He had a season without entering the Turd Championship in terms of how many races he'd done. But with 2 outside the top 10, Lando Chuck Norris, welcome to the Turd Championship. So I'll go from bottom to top, same way that Adam would. Minifont Sainz, Carlos Sainz in 2 negative points. Daniel the Personality, Ricciardo, -4. Douche Canoe, Lewis Hamilton on a -8. 13 negative points for Gasman Gasly. Chuck Norris, -16. Mad Max Verstappen, he's on -40. The Tier 1 Atusa, Mexican Sergio Perez, -44 points. The Chosen One, Charles Leclerc, 47 equal points with the Fonz, Fernando Alonso. Pizza Delivery Guy, Antonio Giovinazzi on -55 points. Fingerboy Sebastian Vettel, 58 negative points. And on 60, French Stick Esteban Ocon. The other Finn, Valtteri Bottas, we should call him Bowling Ball Bottas. He's on 62. Daddy Boy Stroll, Lance Stroll, 67 negative points. And on -69, Boy George Russell, -79 points. Last lap, Raikkonen. Sweary Sonoda on 84. Nicholas Latifi, 124 negative points. Junior Schumacher, 143. And well out ahead, the handsy Russian, the Me Too Mazepin, Nikita Mazepin on -184 points. That wraps up the Turd Championship. That wraps up another effing one podcast. I'm sorry you had to listen to just me. It's been a shit show of a podcast, but thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the Dutch Grand Prix weekend. Make sure you put your tips in the pinned tweet on our Twitter. Get your votes in. I'll tally them up. It's never too late to join in. You'll start at the bottom. I'm not saying you'll start at 0, but you'll start on the same points that my co-host Adam, who doesn't show up for podcast. And I heard tonight he's actually blackfacing up for not being here as well, which seems to say more about him and less about the podcast. And I thought I'd let you know, because we do dress up, as is tradition, as part of the F1 podcast. And I've decided to dress up as a traditional Dutch mini pancake kind of thing. I look delicious. Hit us up on the socials, F1 Podcast on Instagram and on the Twitter sphere. Enjoy the Dutch Grand Prix.